Hi, my name's Heather, and this is the Ankara Book Club. Welcome back. I just didn't even know which book to start with, but I have created a pile. Sometimes I like to just read and read and read, and then give my reviews when they come through. So I hope you're all well. Thanks for tuning in. The next book I would like to talk about has really held a special place in my heart, particularly because it's actually the first book that I have ever done through audio. So when this book found me, which I'm always keen on. So when this book found me, I was going through some heavy emotions, and I knew instinctively and intuitively that I had to go through them. From all my experience, I definitely know that avoiding the emotions only makes them stronger and makes them come up later. So I didn't want to avoid, I didn't want to distract myself. I actually wanted to go through it, but I also needed something to ground me. I didn't want to just be sitting around overthinking everything. I wanted to process, I wanted to move through, I wanted to have the revelations, I wanted to, get all of it, but still be using my time well. So while I was in this heavy, dense place, a friend of mine mentioned an author that she absolutely loves, and she's mentioned her before, and I haven't really got into any of her stuff truly. And the author is Elizabeth Gilbert. So the place I started was a podcast interview with Elizabeth Gilbert. And from that one podcast interview, it introduced a couple of key themes that I 100% needed to hear. She shared about her own story, she shared about the creative journey, but there was just key points in there that I really needed to hear, which made it easier to go through the depths of what I was going through. Because we try so hard not to avoid, but we'll do anything to actually not feel something. We don't want to feel it, particularly if it's to do with what we deem as negative emotions. If it's sadness, if it's anger, if it's shame, if it's fear, if it's resentment, if it's guilt, if it's jealousy, we just have this natural protective instinct not to go through it, right? And I wanted to experience it. I wanted to come out. I didn't want it locked in my body. So I started listening to Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And while I was listening, I was doing all the tasks and jobs that I was avoiding. So I did frustrating tasks at home, like painting and cleaning and tidying and gardening, because it was really in her interview that she mentioned that after she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, she went on to write something else and it was terrible. And she had to let her publishers know that it wasn't good and that she felt like a failure. And she mentioned then that she just got into her garden for 12 months and just did something with her hands and did something that helped her to pass the time, the necessary amount of time it takes to go through something big so that she could transform it. So when I was listening to Big Magic, I was reawakening a creative part of me, which was really important. So this whole book is about deconstructing and understanding what a creative life actually means. And it doesn't mean best-selling books, and it doesn't mean being the best at something. It actually just means, what does it take for us to pursue a creative life? And what does that creativity produce for us? Why is it important? She talks a lot about it just creating an interesting life so that we can keep on pursuing creativity, not for the outcome, simply for the process, to make things interesting and receptive and engaging for us so we can have a meaningful life, but it not be about this success-driven outcome stuff. And that was really important for me to hear in that moment, because I wanted to transform my feelings, but I wanted my feelings to come up. I wanted to dig into the depths of what I was experiencing. I was going into my past, I was going into my trauma. And I know from my work that that stuff is important. Hey, lovelies. If you're resonating with this content, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, helps out the channel, helps us to make beautiful content for you all. Don't forget to comment down below too if you want to share your experiences, ask us a question, and send in some requests. We'd love to know what you want more videos about. Once again, thank you for watching, and we love you all so much. But even though it's important and even though we have that realization, it doesn't make it easy for us to actually open the doors and go through it. So I really needed that encouragement and that narrative around just pursue it for the sake of pursuing it. She talks about the short stories that were never published, the published works that had to be culled and edited. She talks about the stories that really weren't that good and the things that she's written that were out of the blue bestsellers. She talks about it being this association and this love for writing for her that doesn't make any sense at times and doesn't suit the structures of a career model all so often. And that was really important for me because my work is creative and I like to approach it creatively. But the business side of things actually needs to be consistent and structured and ongoing. Creativity can really flourish in any area of your life and in every area of your life. But if we get too caught up on what it's going to look like or what the outcome's going to be, and if we transform all of our creativity into a money-making pursuit, we lose the process. So this really turbocharged a different kind of narrative in my life that actually got me working towards everything that I was procrastinating on. And the procrastination wasn't coming through in my career sector, is actually coming through in the mundane parts of my life. And I realized that they could be enriched and nourished with creativity, that painting the house could be a creative pursuit rather than a mundane obligation. And I could choose to make my environment as stunning as possible, or I could choose to hold resentment around that it was always ongoing, that the maintenance never stopped. So this book really, really changed a part of me. I needed to understand, I needed to hear through her personal anecdotes, through the sound of her voice in the audiobook was really important. And I've since got myself a hard copy because I just love physical books, the smell, the textures, everything about it. And as much as I can, I like to honor the author. So thank you, Elizabeth Gilbert. This book has changed my life. And although I loved Eat, Pray, Love, and I remember reading that and it being a beautiful story to digest, this book was really important for me because, as it says, creative living beyond fear, she talks about extensively the fear that comes up, the fear, the doubt, the resistance, the avoidance, the procrastination. But it's really just the pursuit of, I'm doing it anyway. And some of the beautiful stories and the beautiful writers and the experiences she's had that we would call failures, we would call them all of that effort for nothing to show for it. But she moves through the pursuit and talks about the depths of it. And I really love that. I would think, particularly if you were a writer, and a writer doesn't have to mean someone that has a physical book. A writer is just someone that loves the pursuit of writing and writes often. Then I think this book would be a really beautiful read and maybe something that you would pick up when you're in that sense of failure or when you're in those creative blocks. We get ourselves out of the blocks. We do it because we love the pursuit of anything creative. Creativity sparks the mundane. It pulls us out of stagnation. It gives us something gritty and intentional and meaningful to spend our time doing. And as a lot of writers say, and a lot of successful people say, is you don't choose the best-selling book. Um, the community chooses that, people choose that. And when it hits them at the very right note, exactly where they need to hear it, it's a hit. And whether it's 10 years too early or 10 years too late or not the right time or not the right narrative, you can keep on pursuing and creating and releasing beautiful works of art. But if the world's not ready for them, then that's what it is. If spirit decides that the world's not ready for that piece of art, then that's what we have to surrender to as creative being, as artists, as those in pursuit of a meaningful life. We don't get to decide what people are into. We don't even get to decide if they understand us or see us or hear us. And this book really brought it home. It was like, create anyway, because that gives our life so much nourishment. So if you haven't already, go for Big Magic. I really loved the audiobook. It felt really important for me to be listening to her voice and listening to Big Magic while I was creating a beautiful environment. So that was really something special for me. So if you love this book, if you would love to read it, comment below if you have already read it. Do us a huge big favor and like the video, subscribe to the channel. This keeps us motivated to create more awesome content for you. And this has been Ankara Book Club. I love you so much. Happy reading. Bye.